What's up, guys? Hope you all are doing well. I am joined by the one, the only, Mr. 4 times Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler. How you doing, brother?
Awesome, man. I'm glad you're in my city.
This is fun, and he is kind enough to sit down for a question answer here. So we got some questions from you. Thank you for sending those in, and we're just going to jump into them and get started. So, who do you think would do better, Brian competing at the Olympia or Jay doing strongman at your peaks?
Man, that's a tough question.
We're starting with some fire.
The thing that's going to be hard, I think it's both ways. Like, I'm short, right? And
Yeah.
you're really tall for bodybuilding. So, I mean, Lou Ferrigno was 6'5", and he had a hard time even competing at 300 pounds to really compare. So I think it would be really tough for you to stand on stage. I mean, of course you carry a ton of size, but to lean down, I mean, you still need to be 350 pounds or
Plus,
more.
probably.
And same with strongman. I mean, I think I'd be limited on, with as short as I am, some of these lifts.
That's probably the challenge. It's interesting, the comparison, because it's like you would have limiting factors and I would have limiting factors if we were to switch.
But I think being an athlete, I think you probably are more athletic than I was. I mean, especially with your background. I mean, I was great, like I mentioned, in grammar school and high school, but I never continued after that. So I feel that I lost a lot of my agility, and I think that comes into play so much with strongman, like we discussed earlier today. It's like, you have to have that ability.
100%. So who does better?
I'm gonna just say you do better. I'm gonna give you the credit, man.
It's
because I think you can put on the size. So I mean, I think you could be bigger than Lou Ferrigno, probably.
Okay. I'll take that. I think it's an interesting one, but I saw you throw around some big weights, so it's fun to think about for sure. For Jay, do you think you could eat Brian's daily diet during when you're bulking?
100%. I mean, I heard what you eat. I thought it was a lot more than what I expected. I think we have a lot of similarities, like we mentioned buying cows and, eating how many eggs we eat and whatnot. I mean, listen, you definitely had a little more of a higher fat diet than I did. But I think our carbohydrates, your protein was a little more, but the body weight, if I weighed as much as you, being over 400, I think, I was barely pushing over 300. I think that I would have the metabolism to eat that much, but I definitely could. I would be closer to that than anything that you did, the nutrition aspect, because I ate more than probably 90% of the bodybuilders you read about today or in the past.
See, and watching you eat too, I would agree with that. I think you could handle it easily because some of the meals I saw you put down are tough to eat, especially when they're lower fat. So you're eating a lot of very bland.
And it's mind over matter a lot. We talk very similar where we looked at a meal and it took longer sometimes, and you mentioned you'd get up from a meal and not even finish that meal but go back to eating it.
Yep.
I did that quite a bit, so I think I could get it done.
I think so too. I think this is a good one. What is something you love and hate about each other's respective sport? So strongman versus bodybuilding.
I think the thing with me is I would look at the training as something that I'm floored by because of the type of training that you do. But I think the diet, like, I don't relate to that because I never wanted to put on extra body weight. I was always trying to stay lean as possible because we would guest pose in the off season. So our clothes came off, and that's visually how people judged us, right?
Totally.
So I think in the aspect of you guys bulking and allowing your body weight to climb, and even having some sort of a midsection fat, would be really unorthodox for what I did.
So you would hate that?
Yes.
And what would you love?
I would love pushing the crazy weights, man.
Okay.
I would love like walking around and people being like, that guy's huge, I mean, I faced that to a certain point, but you guys are just next level. I mean, we mentioned taking the picture and, how small, even today we took a picture together and I sent it to a couple people like, how big is that guy?
Right. So here is something I would hate. For me being so competitive, one of the things that I've always thought with bodybuilding is you do all the training, you do all the prep, you get up there on stage, and then you're judged, and it's a judge's opinion of whether you win or lose, right? So you're standing next to another guy, and I might think, hey, you're winning, as I did when you were up against Ronnie a couple times.
Yep.
I was like, God, I have Jay winning. I'm not a bodybuilding judge, but
I wish you were a judge.
right, yeah. So I would hate that walking away getting, let's just say I got second place, and it's like, hey, it's all in the judge's hand. That's one thing I would hate about it, and I think for me, I would love the challenge of the diet and the training, and more in a way like sculpting what you become.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm in it more for like, okay, I eat for performance. I kind of think it would be an interesting challenge to eat just for the outcome of how you look.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you watch your body change like that, and you see like, okay, all that weights and hard work pay off, and then that transformation when you lose 30 pounds in order to rip down. I mean, don't get me wrong, we never stayed ripped all year.
Yeah.
But at 300, I always saw abs. You know, I had cuts in my thighs.
I mean, that's crazy, yeah.
But remember, I always tried to maintain somewhat of a V-taper, and I don't think necessarily you guys pay as much attention because a lot of it's core, right?
Big time.
So a lot of that power comes from that.
Yep. So it's just such a different, drastic thing, but I think it's fun to talk about, like the different aspects there. Training session together would be awesome. You are in luck because that very well could be happening. And the question is, what was the most difficult World's Strongest Man and Olympia win? Which one had the most obstacles to overcome?
You start.
Okay, so for me, I would say my second title in 2013 was the hardest to win because, without going into a long story, I had a torn bicep in 2012 at the Arnold. I detached my bicep, had to have it repaired, and then I got some really bad nerve damage in my arm. Not related to that, but it was just from sleeping incorrectly, which was horrible. So I lost kind of like the function of my left hand in 2012, so I had to recover from that, teach my hand how to work again, and then go and compete in 2013 at World's Strongest Man. So winning that one was by far and away the most obstacles, the hardest for me. So the second one.
Yeah, I would say, 2006, man, I was going against Ronnie Coleman, the greatest bodybuilder of all time. He was going for record number 9.
Yep.
For me, I mean, I was second to him 4 times prior. He was undefeated, in his reign, and I think that no one counted on me winning. And to overcome that and overcome the history books, no Mr. Olympia ever had been defeated on stage, and that was something to overcome. I mean, I think into this day and age, Ronnie Coleman would still be dominant in any contest he competed at if he was at his best. I mean, my best versus Ronnie's best, Ronnie still wins.
See, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear you say that, but I find it awesome that like coming second the way you did. Right, and then every single year you're going back, I'm sure, to the drawing board and saying, all right, let's tweak this, let's change this, let's come in better here, I can improve this, and you're comparing shots and different things like that. But to step back and step back, analyze, and then come back even better.
Yeah,
awesome.
Because you always go to, like, you have your weaknesses, and you know what your weaknesses are. The problem is your goal is to be a little stronger than the person that's challenging you.
Yeah.
And the unique thing about Ronnie and myself is it was like a 2-man race for so many years. It'd be like you competing with one guy and no one else ever was threatening to move up.
Yep.
That's really what the position I was in from 2001 all the way to 2006 when I won the title. Like, it was just basically, okay, it's Jay and Ronnie, and not to put the other guys down,
Totally.
but it always ended up him and I, because we were the two biggest, biggest structured guys there that seemed to have the shape and proportions that they were looking for, and it was hard to overcome, but I was able to do it, and I rewrote the history books, and here I am, man, 4 times.
I love it. Yeah, it's 2006.
Yeah, 2006. Yeah,
That's awesome, man. So this is for Jay. Do you think Brian would kill it in bodybuilding?
I think out of all,
This is gonna be a nice answer because Jay's a nice
no,
guy.
I think that I saw you start to pull down, and you started posting like,
Yeah.
and I don't know what your weight was at then, but I think
Yeah.
you would do pretty well. I think you, I
Okay.
still think you could do it. You know, and the thing is you're at a prime age. Like everyone thinks as you get a little older, the
Yeah.
truth is you're more mature. I think you could do well on a certain level. I definitely think that it would gather a ton of attention. I
Yeah.
think you would have a huge, support from the community. But I don't think it would be anything that you would frown upon. I think it would you would be pretty successful at it because your proportions are really pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like you have the shoulder width, and I mean it's not like when you lean down, you actually you had a pretty good taper, and I think that like you could do it.
So, I mean, it's Jay Cutler saying this stuff right here. You heard it here. So I'm not even blowing smoke, but
This is
maybe
like
if I do that, I'm gonna need you in my corner.
This is like the 3rd time this has been brought up
I
today
know
about bodybuilding.
people ask me. They ask me honestly. They like I kind of threw it out there. I don't even remember how it started. It was like something.
I
hey,
remember
maybe I
seeing
should
them,
do
but
this
you
or
were
whatever.
doing some media about it, and
Yeah.
I thought for real you were ready to. But then of course you were chasing the titles more, and
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Stay tuned on that one. Question for Jay. If you could go back to the good old days, back when you were competing with Ronnie, would you, number one? And if so, would you do anything different with the knowledge you have now to beat Ronnie sooner?
it's a great question. Would I do anything different to beat Ronnie Coleman? The only thing I would have done different, okay, I'm going to go back in history a little bit. 2001 was the first time I placed second to Ronnie. I skipped 2002, and he came in a lot smaller in 2002, and it was always said that if Jay Cutler came in like the year prior, I would have won the title sooner. But I'm very blessed to be able to be second so many times because I feel that I developed so much support. When you're the underdog, sometimes it's a blessing. When you win the title, people want to see you defeated. I mean, we go back to like Mike Tyson. People wanted to see him get beat, right? He just was going and knocking everybody out. I think for me, me being second, it built that character, and it gave me also the motivation to keep getting better. And if I didn't have Ronnie Coleman in front of me, maybe I wouldn't have been as great. So I think I'm
perspective.
blessed because I was able to lengthen my career because bodybuilding isn't a long-term career.
Yep.
And I was able to keep the fire. And then when I won the title, I mean I won 2 and I lost. I got a little less hungry. I came back and I won 2 more. So I had a break in the middle where you notice a lot of the champions, like you look at Phil Heath, you look at Dorian Yates, you look at Ronnie Coleman, they had a long reign. Where I had a reign of over 4 times, but it was over 5 years.
Yeah,
I
that's crazy.
had
Yeah.
to split and take a second in the middle, and then I came back to win it.
Yeah. So you really wouldn't do anything different?
I wouldn't do anything different because there's not
Yeah.
much I could do. I trained 100%. I ate 100%. I was focused 100%. I mean, I didn't leave my house. I didn't miss meals. I just was really, really determined to win the title, and I think that's where we have a lot of similarities. Like, I gave up all social aspects of my life in order to chase that title, and I was able to do it.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah. What drives you both to be so competitive, and what inspires you to be the best? I think for me, on the competitive front, that's just something I remember always having. I did have an older brother, and I was very motivated to beat him, to challenge him, to fight with him, just growing up. That was just something where I was always like, he was 2 years older than me, so I was always trying hard to keep up with him. And I think that's a certain part of it, but it's just something I do remember being ultra competitive just as a young kid, where I would set goals for myself and I would do anything I could to meet those goals overall. And you know, it's just something that was, I just remember always having it, you know, like it wasn't, you know, and as far as being inspired to be the best, I think it was really setting the goals and then following through, you know, and again, you're climbing that ladder, you're working up, and having those close finishes where, you know, for me, my second year at World's Strongest Man, I finished on the podium third, you know, with arguably two of the best ever in strongman with Mariusz Pudzianowski and Zydrunas Savickas. So it was kind of like, okay, that was what got me there, and I knew that I had it. And then I just kind of kept going, like, okay, I want to be the best. I'm going to have to work harder. And it was just that competitive drive and setting the goals and trying to reach the goals and doing whatever it took to get to those goals. But it's just something I always remember having.
Yeah, listen, I grew up in a large family. I had 3 brothers, 3 sisters. You know, we all grew up in central Massachusetts. I wanted to leave there. So I wanted to find an exit strategy. I think fear of failure drove me a lot. So I wanted to be something different. And when I found bodybuilding, I found myself in the gym, and I lost all thought of anything negative in my life when I started weight training. So I think really that gave me motivation. And as I moved up, I never imagined of being the best bodybuilder in the world, but I said, you know what, I'll take it in levels. So it was chasing, you know, teenage title, became a national champion, then of course won my pro card, you know, at 23. Then I was like, you know what, maybe I can, you know, do well in the pros and make some money. And then it was like I won my first pro show, and then I qualified for Olympia, and, you know, I got on Olympia stage, and I never imagined I could win that title, placing almost dead last when I did my first one. And then slowly worked my way up, and next thing you know, I was second. So for me, and then it was just like, okay, I'm that close, I can chase this. And then I realized my potential, and I would just never wanted to lose. I mean, I wanted to be the best, and then once I got up to that level, I said, I want to leave a legacy. I knew I'd be in the history books. I became, you know, the 11th Mr. Olympia in history. And, you know, to this day, I still strive to, you know, leave that mark and use my career as a milestone for other people to reach and say, okay, I want to beat that. It's really cool to have a place in history in my business where people are like, I want to be the next Jay Cutler or better, right? So that's what keeps me still to this day going. I mean, I left the stage, not competing anymore, but I'm still doing things in business and the side of bodybuilding and doing, you know, the personality stuff that really keeps others motivated, and it just, there's nothing more that tops that. So, you know, I was determined.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of an understatement.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and it's cool for me to watch, because you pushing yourself to be the best inspired me in a lot of ways too. And it's one of those things where that effect, even though I'm not directly in the sport of bodybuilding, like I've learned from you, and there's certain aspects of my life that I've tried to tailor to what you've done,
yeah,
and the path that you have, you know, carved out really and paved in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
you know,
we just kind of feed off each other, I think, and it doesn't matter. I looked at all sports.
Yeah.
I remember looking at Lance Armstrong and thinking, man, it's crazy what he achieved. And then I looked at football and basketball and baseball, and I always admired like the athlete's mind, because we all overcome obstacles. And I think, like we talked about, we come from a very like similar background where it's like you have to work.
Yep.
And we said, you know what, there's got to be a better way, right?
Yep.
We didn't want to do hay bales the rest of our lives. And,
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
Even
yep.
though that's a family thing,
Yep.
we wanted to do something bigger and better. And then when you get on that platform, then you realize, wow, I have this much of an audience. What can I do to make everyone better? We want to make the whole world better, and that's what's cool about it.
Couldn't agree more, man, for
Yeah.
sure. Was the famous quad stomp a planned move or spur of the moment?
That is a great question. It was actually not a planned. I actually was looking down at my legs. So a lot of you guys that don't know the quad stomp, I came out in 2009 after losing the title in '08 to Dexter Jackson. And I came in my best shape ever. I looked amazing. I didn't have to do much to show the striations, and my legs really get striated in contest time. And I was able to hit my leg, and I was looking down at my leg, and I was seeing, okay, the striations there that I just saw backstage. I wanted to make sure they were there, and I looked down, and they snapped the picture of the quad stomp. And next thing you knew, the crowd erupted because I was like, boom, I hit the leg, and
that's awesome.
It was one of the greatest moments probably the greatest moment in bodybuilding history.
I think it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean,
to not be planned and have that.
When you have a titled pose like the quad stomp, I don't think anyone else has ever been recognized as like, hey, he did the quad stomp. You know what I mean?
No, totally. That's cool. So not planned.
Yeah. Not planned.
Never did it in posing before.
Never did it, but you know what? It's a trending thing on TikTok right now.
That's awesome.
And show me your best quad stomp. So
hey, hard to beat.
That's my best TikTok views of all time was the quad stomp.
Quad stomp.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. All right, guys, I think we are going to wrap it up there. I quite literally could sit here and ask Jay questions all day, and we could probably go back and forth, and we'll maybe have to do something like this again in the future. But I want to thank you very much, man. I mean, the knowledge that you shared, and you know, we're just literally talking about questions here and whatever, but the depth that you go to, I personally appreciate it a ton, and it is so cool for me personally, just be sitting here with Jay and going back and forth. I have looked up to this man for a long time, so it's something that it means a lot to me, you coming on, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. You want to say anything on the way?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys so much, man. I'm sure there's a million other questions, and make sure you guys tag your questions below, because it definitely, you know, if I was a bystander watching our careers, there's so many questions, but we don't realize until we get into deep conversation how much the similarities are. And you know, as much as I admire what he does, you know, I think he has a love for bodybuilding, and you know, I think after this, I need to get him back on, and I need to get him on a bodybuilding stage, I think. So
that's gonna leave the comments.
We've shared the stage. We've shared the stage a few times because we've been on the same platforms for him performing, and me doing my thing with the posing. But let's get him up there, man.
Oh man,
yeah.
If that's not a call out, I don't know what is. Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, love you, man. I appreciate the time, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. For now, go out and be great, and we'll check you guys later.